There is a silent suffering that most people carry without realizing its true cause. It is not always pain, loss, or failure. Often it is attachment, the invisible grip of wanting things to happen a certain way, at a certain time, with certain people. The anxiety of forcing outcomes, the quiet fear that if we let go, everything we care about will disappear. Buddhism teaches something radically different from what the modern world repeats every day. While society insists that you must chase, control, insist, and fight for everything, Buddhist wisdom whispers a calmer truth. What truly belongs to you will never need to be forced. This idea is not about passivity. It is not about giving up on life or ambition. It is about understanding the deep flow of existence, the natural unfolding of causes and conditions, and learning to move with it instead of against it. The phrase, "If it's meant for you, it will come," is not a motivational cliché in Buddhist philosophy. It is a recognition of impermanence, non-attachment, and right action. When you stop clinging, you stop suffering. When you stop forcing, clarity emerges. When you release fear, life aligns in ways the mind could never plan. In this teaching, you will explore the profound connection between detachment and peace. You will understand why chasing often blocks what you seek, why letting go is an act of trust rather than weakness, and how the calm mind naturally attracts what is in harmony with it. This is not about magical thinking. It is about inner alignment. It is about becoming so rooted in awareness that life flows toward you without resistance. And it begins with understanding why attachment is the root of suffering, why attachment creates suffering, and how letting go changes everything. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not from pain itself, but from attachment to outcomes, identities, and desires. Pain is inevitable in life. Suffering is optional. The difference lies in how tightly we cling to what we want. When you desire something deeply, a person, a result, recognition, love, success, your mind begins to revolve around it. Thoughts loop endlessly. Anxiety grows. Fear of loss emerges before the thing has even arrived. And when it finally does, the fear of losing it replaces the joy of having it. This is the paradox of attachment. The more you hold, the less peace you feel. In Buddhist teachings, this attachment is called tanha, craving. It is the thirst that never feels satisfied. Even when fulfilled, it quickly redirects itself towards something else. This endless wanting is what keeps the mind restless. Most people misunderstand detachment. They believe it means indifference, coldness, or emotional withdrawal. But true detachment is not the absence of love. It is the absence of fear. You can love deeply and still be unattached. You can care fully without clinging. Detachment means you allow things to come and go without trying to imprison them. Imagine holding sand in your hand. If you close your fist tightly, the sand slips through your fingers. If you keep your palm open, the sand rests naturally. Life works the same way. When you cling to outcomes, you tighten your grip on reality. You resist its movement, and that resistance creates suffering. Buddhism teaches that everything is impermanent. Relationships change, circumstances shift. People grow, drift, and evolve. Even your own identity is not fixed. When you accept this truth deeply, you stop fighting reality. This does not mean you stop acting. It means you act without attachment to results. You work, but you do not obsess. You love, but you do not possess. You dream, but you do not depend on the dream to define your worth. And here is where the phrase, "if it's meant for you, it will come," gains its real meaning. What is meant for you aligns with your nature, your path, and your growth. It does not require constant anxiety, manipulation, or force. It unfolds naturally as you walk in awareness. Many people exhaust themselves trying to control timing. They ask, why hasn't it happened yet? Dull. But Buddhism teaches that timing is not controlled by desire. It is shaped by readiness. Sometimes what you want is not delayed because it is denied, but because you are still becoming the person who can receive it without being destroyed by it. Detachment prepares you. When you let go of desperation, you gain clarity. When you release fear, you create space. When you stop chasing, you become magnetic. This is not mystical, it is psychological and spiritual truth. A calm mind sees opportunities clearly. A desperate mind misses them. A detached heart recognizes what aligns. An attached heart confuses desire with destiny. This is why people who stop searching often find what they were looking for, not because the universe rewards indifference, but because clarity attracts clarity. Buddhism teaches that peace is not found by controlling the world, but by understanding the mind. And when the mind is free, life flows naturally toward what belongs. When something is not meant for you, forcing it will bring exhaustion, anxiety, and loss of self. When something is meant for you, it arrives with a sense of effortlessness. Even if effort is involved, there is a quiet knowing, a feeling of alignment, a sense that you are not betraying yourself to obtain it. Detachment allows you to recognize that difference. It teaches you to trust life without becoming passive, to move forward without fear, to act without attachment, to desire without suffering, and this is the foundation of inner peace. Because when you finally understand that what is truly yours cannot miss you, you stop chasing shadows and start walking calmly toward what is real. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. These teachings are shared to help you release anxiety, find clarity, and reconnect with the peace that already exists within you. More lessons like this are coming, and you are invited to walk this path with us. One of the greatest illusions the human mind carries is the belief that control equals safety. From a very young age, we are taught that if we plan enough, push hard enough, and anticipate every outcome, we can avoid pain. This belief quietly shapes our decisions, our relationships, and even our spirituality. Yet Buddhism teaches something radically different. The tighter you try to control life, the more fragile you become. Control creates tension. It forces the mind into a constant state of vigilance. You are always watching, adjusting, predicting, fearing what might go wrong. This is exhausting, not because life is heavy, but because resistance is heavy. The mind was never meant to carry the weight of the future. When Buddha spoke of suffering, he was not referring only to physical pain or emotional hardship. He was pointing to the subtle discomfort that arises from trying to make life obey our expectations. This is why even people who have everything often feel restless. Their suffering does not come from lack, but from attachment to how things should be. Detachment begins where control ends. This is difficult for most people to accept because control feels like strength. Letting go feels like weakness. But in Buddhist wisdom, true strength is the ability to remain at peace when things do not go according to plan. True freedom is not found in shaping reality, but in aligning with it. When you stop trying to force outcomes, something remarkable happens. Your awareness sharpens. You begin to notice patterns you were blind to before. You see which paths feel heavy and which feel natural. You recognize when something flows and when it resists. Life speaks constantly, but the noise of control drowns it out. The mind that is obsessed with control cannot hear intuition. It cannot recognize divine timing. It confuses impatience with purpose and urgency with importance. That is why so many people chase what exhausts them and abandon what could heal them. Buddhism teaches that when something is meant for you, it aligns with your inner state. It does not require you to abandon your peace. It does not demand anxiety as a price of entry. It does not make you betray your own values. This does not mean the path will be easy. Growth can be uncomfortable. Change can be challenging. But there is a difference between meaningful effort and desperate force. One expands you, the other depletes you. When you are aligned with what is meant for you, effort feels purposeful rather than draining. Even obstacles feel instructive rather than punishing. There is a sense of inner stability, even when the outer world shifts. This is why detachment is not about doing nothing. It is about doing what is right without being enslaved by the outcome. Think about how often suffering comes from expectations. You expect people to behave a certain way. You expect life to reward your effort immediately. You expect clarity before taking a step. And when these expectations are not met, frustration arises. But reality does not move according to expectation. It moves according to causes and conditions. Some of these conditions you influence, many you do not. Detachment teaches you to act where you have influence and surrender where you do not. This balance is the heart of peace. When you stop clinging to results, you begin to act with sincerity instead of fear. You speak more honestly. You choose more carefully. You walk away sooner from what drains you. You stop proving yourself to people who cannot see you, and slowly, something changes. You no longer chase validation. You no longer beg for clarity. You no longer force connections. You no longer fear endings. You begin to trust the intelligence of life. This trust is not blind faith. It is built through observation. When you look back, you will notice that the moments that shaped you most were often the ones you did not plan. The detours, the losses, the delays, the unexpected encounters. These moments refined you, redirected you, strengthened you. If everything had gone exactly as you wanted, you might never have grown. Buddhism teaches that clinging to outcomes blocks wisdom. Letting go allows insight to arise. When the mind is quiet, you begin to sense when something is aligned and when it is not. You no longer need external validation to confirm your path. This is why people who practice detachment often appear calm, grounded, and quietly confident. They are not passive. They are centered. They do not chase love. They become loving. They do not chase success. They cultivate skill. They do not chase peace. They remove what disturbs it. And in doing so, life responds. When something is truly meant for you, it does not need to be hunted. It meets you halfway. It enters your life without destroying your balance. It grows with you, not at your expense. This does not mean you will never experience loss. Detachment does not protect you from pain. It protects you from unnecessary suffering. Pain is part of life. Suffering is resistance to life. The more you resist what is, the more you suffer. The more you accept what is, the freer you become. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means clarity. It means seeing reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. When you accept, you stop wasting energy fighting the present. When you stop fighting, you gain strength. When you gain strength, you move forward with wisdom. And this is where true peace begins, not in controlling the world, not in forcing outcomes, but in trusting the rhythm of life and walking in harmony with it. If something leaves, let it go. If something returns, receive it with awareness. If something never comes, understand that it was never meant to. Your value does not depend on what stays. Your peace does not depend on what arrives. Your path unfolds exactly as it should when you stop interfering with fear. This is the heart of Buddhist detachment. This is the meaning behind the phrase, if it's meant for you, it will come. And if this message speaks to you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. More teachings like this are shared here to help you let go of anxiety, trust your path, and find peace in the unfolding of life. There is a quiet wisdom hidden inside waiting. Most people never discover it because they are too busy trying to escape the discomfort that waiting creates. The mind sees waiting as failure, delay, or punishment. But in Buddhist understanding, waiting is often a sacred space where transformation occurs without noise. Modern life teaches you to rush, to demand answers immediately, to feel anxious if something does not move fast enough. Yet the deepest changes in life never happen quickly. They unfold slowly, silently, and often invisibly. The seed does not rush to become a tree. The river does not force its way through the mountain. Growth happens when conditions are ready, not when impatience demands it. When you hear the phrase, "If it's meant for you, it will come," it is inseparable from the lesson of patience. Because what is meant for you often arrives only after you have become capable of receiving it without fear, ego, or attachment. Waiting in this sense is not passive, it is active preparation. Most people misunderstand patience as doing nothing, but Buddhist patience is a deep inner discipline. It is the ability to remain present without panic, to trust without proof, to stay grounded when the future is uncertain. The mind resists this. It wants guarantees, it wants timelines, it wants reassurance. But life rarely provides these things in advance. Instead, it offers moments that test your ability to stay centered when nothing seems to be happening. This is where most people give up too soon. They interpret silence as rejection. They interpret delay as failure. They interpret uncertainty as danger. But silence is often where clarity is forming. Delay is often where alignment is happening. Uncertainty is often where growth begins. Buddhism teaches that impatience comes from ego. The ego wants control, recognition, and certainty. It wants to know that its efforts will be rewarded. But the deeper self understands that life unfolds in layers, not schedules. When you rush, you move ahead of your own development. When you wait with awareness, you mature naturally. This is why forcing outcomes often leads to regret. You may get what you want before you are ready to hold it wisely. You may enter relationships that expose wounds you haven't healed. You may achieve success that amplifies insecurity instead of peace. The universe does not withhold things to punish you. It withholds them to protect you. And this protection often feels like delay. There is a moment in every journey where nothing seems to move. You pray, you reflect, you try, and still nothing changes. This moment is not empty. It is a test of trust. Can you remain calm when there is no visible progress? Can you stay grounded when results are absent? Can you continue living with integrity, even when there is no reward? This is where detachment deepens. When you stop measuring your worth by outcomes, you begin to experience freedom. You realize that your value does not rise or fall with success, recognition, or approval. You are valuable because you exist. Buddhist teachings often compare life to a river. You cannot push the river faster. You cannot force it to change direction. But you can learn how to float, how to steer gently, how to trust its movement. When you fight the current, you exhaust yourself. When you move with it, you conserve energy. When you understand it, you travel farther with less effort. This is why those who learn patience often appear calm, even in uncertainty. They are not passive, they are observant. They are listening to life instead of shouting at it. Patience also teaches you discernment. When you are not rushing, you begin to notice what feels forced and what feels natural. You recognize when something requires constant struggle and when it unfolds with ease. You start to see that what is meant for you does not demand that you abandon your peace to obtain it. This does not mean life will always feel easy. Growth can be uncomfortable. Waiting can be painful. But there is a difference between pain that refines and pain that drains. The pain of growth has meaning. The pain of attachment has resistance. When you wait with awareness, you allow life to align circumstances beyond your limited understanding. Things begin to connect in ways you could not have planned. People appear at the right moment. Opportunities arise naturally. Insights emerge without force. This is why so many spiritual traditions emphasize stillness, not because action is wrong, but because clarity is born in silence. In silence, you hear intuition. In stillness, you recognize truth. In patience, you develop wisdom. Most people never experience this because they abandon the waiting phase too soon. They move from desire to distraction without allowing insight to mature. But when you stay present in the waiting, something profound happens. You begin to detach from outcomes and connect with process. You stop asking, when will it happen? And start asking, who am I becoming while I wait? And that question changes everything, because who you become determines what you can hold. If you become calm, you attract peace. If you become grounded, you attract stability. If you become aware, you attract clarity. This is why Buddhism does not promise instant rewards. It promises awakening, and awakening cannot be rushed. When something is meant for you, it arrives when you are no longer desperate for it, when you no longer need it to validate you, when you can receive it without losing yourself. That is the moment when life says, now you are ready. Until then, waiting is not a punishment. It is preparation. And if you can learn to wait without anxiety, to trust without fear, and to remain present without forcing outcomes, you will discover a peace that does not depend on circumstances. This is the quiet power of detachment. This is the wisdom behind patience. This is the deeper meaning of letting life unfold. If this teaching is helping you see your path more clearly, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. More reflections like this are shared here to help you cultivate patience. Trust the process and walk your journey with calm and clarity. There is a quiet paradox at the center of human life. The more intensely you chase happiness, the more distant it seems to become. This is one of the deepest truths in Buddhist philosophy, yet one of the hardest for the modern mind to accept. Society teaches that happiness is something to be achieved, acquired, accumulated, or reached after a series of accomplishments. Buddhism teaches the opposite. Happiness is not something you pursue. It is something you uncover when you stop chasing. The act of chasing implies lack. It assumes that happiness is somewhere else, in the future, dependent on circumstances that have not yet arrived. And when you live in that mindset, the present moment becomes merely a bridge to something better. Life turns into waiting, striving, and postponing peace. But peace cannot be postponed. It only exists now. When the Buddha spoke of suffering, he identified desire as its root. Not desire in the sense of healthy intention, but desire as attachment. The craving that says, I will be whole when I have this, or I cannot be at peace until this changes. This craving keeps the mind restless, always leaning forward, never settling. The tragedy is that many people actually reach what they once wanted, only to find themselves still dissatisfied. The job, the relationship, the recognition, the stability, none of it brings lasting peace. The mind quickly moves on to the next desire, the next improvement, the next thing that must be fixed. This cycle never ends because the problem was never the absence of what you wanted. The problem was the belief that happiness depends on external conditions. Buddhism teaches that happiness is not something you gain, but something you remember. It is your natural state when the mind is no longer dominated by craving, fear, and resistance. When you stop chasing happiness, you begin to notice moments of quiet contentment that were always there. The simple act of breathing, the warmth of sunlight, the stillness between thoughts, the feeling of being alive without needing a reason. These moments are subtle, and because they are subtle, most people overlook them. The mind is trained to seek intensity, excitement, stimulation, but true peace is gentle. It does not announce itself. It does not demand attention. It simply exists. This is why so many people feel uneasy in silence. Silence exposes the restlessness within. It reveals how dependent the mind has become on distraction. When there is nothing to chase, nothing to fix, nothing to prove, the mind feels uncomfortable. Not because something is wrong, but because it is unused to stillness. Buddhism does not ask you to suppress desire. It asks you to observe it, to watch how it arises, how it demands, how it promises fulfillment, and how it fades. Through observation, you begin to see that desire itself is unstable. And if the thing you are chasing is built on something unstable, it cannot bring lasting peace. This realization is liberating. When you stop chasing happiness, you stop making your well-being dependent on external events. You stop saying, "I'll be happy when," and begin saying, "I am present now." This shift changes everything. You begin to enjoy experiences without clinging to them. You appreciate people without trying to possess them. You work toward goals without attaching your identity to the outcome. You become lighter. The mind that no longer chases is a mind at ease. It moves through life with curiosity instead of desperation. It engages without clinging. It participates without losing itself. And this is where something remarkable happens. When you stop chasing happiness, it starts to arise naturally, not as excitement, but as contentment, not as pleasure, but as peace, not as euphoria, but as quiet fulfillment. This kind of happiness does not depend on circumstances. It can exist in simplicity, in uncertainty, even in difficulty. It is not the happiness of getting what you want, but the happiness of not needing everything to be different. Buddhist teachings often describe this as freedom from suffering, not because pain disappears, but because resistance does. When you stop resisting life, you stop fighting yourself. You begin to see that many of your struggles came not from events, but from your reaction to them, from the stories you told yourself, from the expectations you carried, and slowly you begin to let those stories go. You stop asking life to be easier. You stop demanding certainty. You stop insisting on control. You start listening. This listening changes your relationship with everything. You become more patient with people, more compassionate with yourself, more accepting of imperfection. You realize that life is not meant to be mastered, but experienced. And in this acceptance, joy quietly appears. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady. This is why the Buddha taught that enlightenment is not something you achieve, but something you uncover by removing ignorance. Ignorance of impermanence, ignorance of attachment, ignorance of the present moment. When you remove these layers, what remains is peace. And this peace does not need chasing. It does not disappear when circumstances change. It does not depend on success or failure. It does not require approval. It simply is. When something is truly meant for you, it does not come through desperation. It comes through alignment, through readiness, through inner stillness. And often it arrives when you least expect it, not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped clinging. This is the great paradox of life. The more you try to grasp it, the more it slips away. The more you relax into it, the more it reveals itself. So if you find yourself chasing happiness, chasing answers, chasing certainty, pause, breathe, observe, let go just a little. You may discover that what you were searching for has been quietly waiting within you all along. If this reflection resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. More teachings like this are shared here to help you release attachment, find inner peace, and live with greater clarity and calm. There comes a moment in every life when the struggle to control begins to feel heavier than the fear of letting go. It is a quiet moment, often unnoticed, when something inside you realizes that holding on has become more painful than releasing. This is the moment where true surrender begins, not surrender as defeat, but surrender as understanding. Buddhism speaks deeply about this kind of surrender, not as resignation, but as wisdom, not as giving up, but as aligning with reality. Surrender is the recognition that life is larger than your plans, deeper than your fears, and more intelligent than your resistance. Most people misunderstand surrender because they associate it with weakness. They believe that if they stop pushing, they will lose everything. But in truth, surrender is not the abandonment of effort. It is the abandonment of illusion. The illusion that you must control every outcome in order to be safe. The illusion that your worth depends on constant achievement. The illusion that life must unfold according to your expectations. When you surrender, you are not saying, "I don't care." You are saying, "I trust." This trust is not blind faith. It is a quiet confidence that life unfolds according to a wisdom greater than personal desire. It is the understanding that some doors close not to punish you, but to redirect you. That some losses occur not to empty you, but to make space for something more aligned. Surrender is the final lesson of detachment, because it requires the deepest level of courage. It asks you to loosen your grip on what you thought you needed. It asks you to accept uncertainty without panic. It asks you to walk forward without guarantees. And yet, it is only through surrender that true peace emerges. When you stop trying to force life, something remarkable happens. Life begins to support you in ways you never anticipated. You meet the right people at the right time. You find clarity without searching. You feel guided rather than lost. This does not mean everything becomes easy. Challenges still arise, pain still exists, but the relationship you have with difficulty changes. You stop seeing obstacles as enemies and begin to see them as teachers. Surrender teaches you that not everything that hurts is harmful, and not everything that feels good is right. It teaches discernment. It teaches patience. It teaches humility. One of the deepest Buddhist insights is that suffering intensifies when we demand certainty from an uncertain world. Life, by its nature, is impermanent. Everything changes, everything flows. Trying to freeze it in place is the source of anguish. When you surrender, you stop asking life to be predictable. You start meeting it as it is. This shift brings an unexpected freedom. You no longer obsess over outcomes. You no longer cling to timelines. You no longer fear loss as intensely. You begin to understand that nothing truly meant for you can pass you by, and nothing that leaves was ever meant to stay. This understanding does not make you passive. It makes you grounded. You still act, you still choose, you still care, but you no longer attach your peace to the result. You do what you can with sincerity and integrity, and then you release the rest. This is where peace lives, not in certainty, not in control, but in trust. The Buddhist path teaches that when you surrender attachment, you gain clarity. When you surrender fear, you gain courage. When you surrender resistance, you gain flow. And when you surrender the need to force life, life begins to meet you halfway. This is the deeper meaning behind the phrase, "If it's meant for you, it will come." It does not mean waiting passively. It means living fully without clinging. It means acting without desperation. It means trusting without blindness. It means knowing that what aligns with your growth, your values, and your truth will find its way to you. Not because you chased it, but because you were ready for it. When you truly understand this, you stop living in anxiety about the future. You stop replaying the past. You become present, and presence is where life actually happens. In presence, you feel grounded. In presence, you feel whole. In presence, you realize that nothing essential is missing. This realization changes everything. You stop running, you stop forcing, you stop fearing, you begin living. And in this state of calm awareness, life unfolds with a quiet grace. Opportunities arise naturally. Connections deepen effortlessly. Decisions become clearer. You move with confidence, not because you know what will happen, but because you trust yourself to meet whatever comes. This is freedom, not freedom from responsibility, but freedom from fear. Not freedom from pain, but freedom from suffering. Not freedom from life, but freedom within it. And this is the final lesson of detachment. Let go, trust, allow. What is meant for you will come, not when you demand it, but when you are ready to receive it without losing yourself. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. More teachings like this are shared here to help you release fear, trust your path, and live with clarity and peace.